So good afternoon and welcome to the Construction Innovation Hub panel discussion on Next 1 Billion Home, Building for a Sustainable Future. The Construction Innovation Hub is a collaborative initiative founded by Habitat for Humanity International, the Villgro Center for Innovation in Shelter and Kerala Startup Mission. The Villgro Center mission is to make housing market system competitive, resilient and inclusive, thereby making them more accessible and affordable for those in need. Through the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Hub, they have supported over 100 innovations, enabling them to enter market and scale their solutions across more than 20 countries. The Construction Innovation Hub goal is to advance innovation, sustainability within India's construction industry. Their aim is to encourage collaboration, knowledge sharing, and innovation among various stakeholders such as engineers, contractors, policymakers, academics, and civil society organizations. So welcome to our panel discussion on the future of sustainable housing and innovative process of startups and scale-ups in this sector. So housing isn't just an industry. It's a crucial element against fighting the climate change. Recent studies such as 2022 Circularity Gap Report underline the immense potential for reducing carbon emission through sustainable housing. Interestingly, the startups and scale-ups have taken the lead, creating game-changing solutions, especially in the low-income countries. Their creativity and commitment to sustainability have been undeniable. So here's a million-dollar question. When the demand is there, why aren't we pouring more capital, more knowledge, and connection into this sector? Who are the key players in driving this change? What are the trends we should be watching for? So today, our esteemed panelists will be shedding some light on these pressing questions. So before I start our panel discussion, I would like to invite all the respective panel speakers on the stage. Thank you everyone for joining us today on the panel discussion. Before we begin the discussion, I would like every panel speakers to give a brief self-introduction about themselves. Starting with you, Tharun.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks all for joining here. Well, my name is Tharun. I'm the founder of Ecostp Technologies. We are a Bangalore-based startup with operations in Kerala to treat wastewater. We convert bad water or sewage to good water without using any power or chemicals. So no power, no chemicals. That's what we do. And how we do this? We mimic a cow stomach. So it's completely natural process that we developed a special bacteria which does the work. There's a magic rather. But it's not the idea. It actually works. We have 200 plus customers all over India, including in Trivandrum, where it works very well. Yeah, look forward to more discussions.
I work at the Habitat for Humanity International's Villgro Center. Our work areas include looking at affordable, accessible building materials, housing finance, construction labor and skills, and of course, innovations and entrepreneurship. We are here today because Habitat for Humanity International's Villgro Center has forged a partnership with Kerala Startup Mission to look at creating an ecosystem for the startups in Kerala in the construction sector.
Hi everyone, my name is Ananth Aravamudan. I represent Villgro. Villgro is an incubator of social enterprises. It's a 22-year-old organization based in Chennai and Bangalore. We are very happy to be here. In fact, the topic is very relevant because affordable and sustainable housing or shelter is a very important area in which we support startups. We work closely with Habitat for Humanity and we are also, to be associated in the implementation of the Construction Innovation Hub. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gopi. I am one of the co-founders of BuildNext. We are a one-of-a-kind custom home building platform. We basically have a very extensive technology stack, which starts all the way from designing a home to basically assigning vendors, to actually getting it done, to quality checks, to handover and all the process. And we essentially have wrapped the entire thing up, and we are probably one of the largest custom home builders in the country right now. And we are essentially looking forward to expand and take our home building platform to certain other markets as well right now. So we're in the middle of that. So that will be me.
Hello everyone, my name is Anuj Mehra. I have been associated with the Mahindra Group for the longest time, first in their construction wing, and then later I helped set up and scale a housing finance business called Mahindra Rural Housing Finance. I superannuated about 2 years back, and since then I've been working with a whole lot of startups through organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, MSTF, IIM Ahmedabad's Accelerator Program, etc.
Thank you, everyone. So before we begin, I want to ask Deepak, what's the role of Habitat for Humanity working with startups, and how does the sustainability comes in?
Yeah, Kritika, that's a question which I think a lot of our audience would like to know more about. Well, Habitat for Humanity has been working in the construction sector for quite a number of years. Initially started as a philanthropic effort. We realized that to reach scale, we would have to address challenges in the market. So, Terwilliger Center developed what is called a Market Systems Development Program, which includes creating an ecosystem for innovations and entrepreneurship. Because as Kritika mentioned, competitive markets need to continuously upgrade, innovate, and ensure a flow of benefits to the demand side. We've been working in partnerships with other technical business incubators, Villgro, for example, CIIE, which is an IIM Ahmedabad technical business incubator. We worked with the Brigade Group, that is the REAP, Real Estate Accelerator Program, and now the partnership with Kerala Startup Mission. We look at identifying promising startups who are in the market, help them in product development, business mentorship, capacity building, and post-incubation support. We also provide catalytic grants to run pilots, go-to-market strategies, and also in some cases, we've invested in the startups. As far as sustainability goes, the core theme in our program on innovations and entrepreneurship has of course been sustainability, looking at all aspects like social, environmental, and economic sustainability. We look at startups who are making eco-friendly materials, better project management software, energy efficiency, etc. And as anecdotal evidence, I have Tharun sitting with me, who, as he was telling you earlier, is a wastewater management system which does not use power. And I would like Tharun to expand more on what solution they have in the market which addresses sustainability theme. Tharun?
Yeah, we're talking about sustainability. Let me connect the dots here. So we started with the Shelter Tech accelerator by Habitat for Humanity. That's how we started. They invested in our company. So of course, and this is a long-term investment. The patient capital, long-term investment, with a key focus on sustainability. They invest on sustainable companies. So how do you, and I treat wastewater, I convert bad water to good water without power or chemicals. It works well. But how do you show the impact metrics? So we went to on IIT Madras, and they helped us. How do you measure the impact? So we had 3 impacts: how much power saved, how much coal we saved, because India's power is come coal, and lastly, how much water you treated, how much sewage you treated. So we treated 2 billion liters of water, 2 billion liters of sewage reclaimed without any power of chemicals. But then it's not enough for him. He wants something more. Like we want how many people impacted and other metrics, right? So where do we go for it? That's where Villgro comes in. So they have an impact training with us, ongoing training, and we learned some 13 more metrics. How do you impact? How many people you impact? How many diseases are stopped, etc., etc., etc. And also we learned a concept called TOC, theory of change. Theory of change is, take a minute on this, how you look at your inputs, and your activities and your outputs, standard input, output, and that's the standard one, activities. And then what is the outcome? What's the outcome of this? And then what's the real impact, right? So then we measure the impact. So we put it all together because sustainability is one we do, real hardcore stuff, bad water to good water. Then also to show the impact metrics, how it really matters. That's how all the partnerships and all comes in.
Ananth, you want to talk about the partnership you had with Habitat for Humanity?
Yes, indeed. So, as Deepak mentioned, we work on the Shelter Tech Accelerator. As the topic of this panel indicates, it's very important to create the right environment to build the next billion homes, but in a sustainable manner. And startups are, who bring a lot of innovation. They are the ones who can really do that. So what is the kind of support that these startups need, right? I think Tharun already mentioned a little bit about how, it's important to measure your impact and so on. But I will outline 3 other areas. First and foremost is to be able to pilot what you're doing, to be able to showcase to the world that this is what I am making. It is sustainable, it is strong, it is meeting all the standards. So we help, through the accelerator, we help a lot of startups to create pilots which can be demonstrated. Second is the certification aspect. So today, when you're talking about sustainable construction and green building materials, it is very important to be able to certify your product so that it can be picked up both by the commercial and residential sector. And for that, the first thing is to measure your environmental footprint. Okay, so there are various kinds of life cycle analysis to be done. There are certifications which have to be taken. And this is a journey which we help the startup to do. And lastly, and very importantly, it is the scale aspect. So often today, the green building materials or sustainable construction materials are available. They are cheap, they are strong, they are certified. But these companies are not able to produce it in the sufficient quantity. So if you're ordering, say, 10 truckloads, they don't have the capacity to produce and deliver that many. So that scaling up of operations becomes something very, very critical, which we as an incubator, help them to make the business plan and raise the necessary capital to do that. So I think these are some of the areas which the partnership has really helped, where Habitat for Humanity and Villgro have worked closely together. Apart from that, a lot of the technical mentorship provided by the experts at Habitat for Humanity and so on. I think that has really helped at least, 5 to 6 startups scale their operations and achieve certification. And we are going to continue this, going forward, including in the Construction Innovation Hub, which will be a very, very important project, which will be done along with the Kerala Startup Mission.
Thank you. And you pointed out there are few pain points when it comes to construction operations. We will also delve into that. But before, Mr. Anuj, you would like to add with the Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah, thanks, Kritika. But, before I say anything, I just go back to something which you mentioned, and I'll link it to that. There is a huge demand, but not enough activity seems to be happening when it comes to construction. So where is the problem? You raised that right in the beginning. One of the sort of culprits is supposed to be finance, and how banks and financial organizations are not supporting affordable housing to the extent they should. Of course, a lot has happened in the last couple of years. And this is what brings me to Lega Center. One of the reasons why banks were a little hesitant, when they lend to a housing finance company, they look at to a housing customer, they look at 2 things: quality of the customer and quality of the collateral, or the house that is being pledged or is likely to be pledged. Now, quality of the customer is reasonably set because you have bureau scores, you have your internal norms, you have salary slips, you have this, you have that. So it's reasonably in place. When it comes to quality of collateral, there is a lot of question because it's very ad hoc. It is individualized. It depends on the valuer who's actually doing the valuation. Who is normally not an employee of the financing organization, so you don't know how much to trust. And that's where Navank, an organization which has been helped and incubated by Twilega Center, came up with the solution where they are doing a whole lot of data crunching to figure out what a score for the property should be. So just like a bureau score for the individual, they are trying to develop a score for a property, a unique score for each and every property. Early days yet, but they have already got a whole lot of traction with a lot of NBFCs, HFCs rather, and banks. And that's where Twilega really played a key role, not just the check which they wrote, but the industry introductions, the thought process. That's where they really helped them. So if you are a startup looking for support, please, you know whom to contact.
Thank you. So, Gopi, I want to know from you, as we have now touched upon the construction industry, it is quite still not that well organized. So how do you see the future in terms of the collaboration between the traditional construction practices and the emerging eco-friendly technologies, sustainable technologies for a more cautious eco-industry?
Thank you for the question. In fact, I'd like to continue, this answer from, the kind of discussions that we were having, right? So Anuj, you did talk about how it's, how finance is kind of considered an impediment. Now, right after that, the financing discussion ends, let's kind of, if I would like to talk a little bit from the side of, let us say, a startup, right? See, if it'll be kind of easy to understand this if you compare, this as a market with any other, let us say, sector, let us say, automobile or something like that. There are different requirements for different segments within this. These market segments are not very clearly articulated, organized in this particular space. So now what is really happening is any product doesn't really understand how to really go about like the right kind of distribution channel, how to really segment, how to talk to a particular customer. Should I talk to the customer? Should I talk to the, service provider, right? That little bit of, confusion is always there. There is no clear distribution channel available. Even in terms of product development, the kind of feedback that customers, the feedback that, companies or startups actually get when they try to do this, it's a little bit all over the place because there is no very, clear understanding of these segments, either in, written in somewhere in the industry, neither is it actually available, with, any particular, literature or anything like that. So there's not even data available, right? In terms of a lot of this. So if you basically look at, so there's this, there's this data that, it's there in the next billion.in, right? So the data actually says that 70% plus of all new housing is actually in the, like the unorganized self-construction kind of segment. It is neither by government nor by the, large private players, right? So now this entire thing, so one of the key tasks and, which we hopefully are slowly seeing, which we are also kind of, taking a little bit of responsibility for, is try to understand what are these segments and what are the specific requirements these segments have, and thereby able to kind of, identify which particular new products or which particular, like sustainable practices, etc., can be pitched or can be given to this particular segment in a packaged manner. India is a very value conscious market like that, and the value, when every segment sees value in a different thing, it is very important to kind of understand how and which particular, product needs to be packaged together and given to the, to those. And once we are actually able to understand this, once this segmentation becomes very clear, and once we are actually able to kind of put traditional practices as well as the new sustainable replacements into these segments, then this becomes a very straightforward kind of let's say a straightforward conversation in terms of how do I evaluate this particular new technology, right? How do I understand what is the potential market size? How do I distribute this into that particular segment, either through the SMEs or through the organized players in that particular segment and space, right? So this is something that we'll hopefully see in much more volume in the next few years. Now again, this kind of a segmentation is already available in the developed markets, and if we look at the Indian market, we see that some of these developments which have actually happened in let's say like a US, where people have different brands for different segments of homes and different kinds of products, and so there are brands which cater for entry level homes, there are brands which cater to retiree homes, and so on and so forth, and there are specific segments, specific product lines which actually go to these ones, right? So we are probably I don't know, maybe 20 years behind in terms of this market segmentation, but that's about it, right? We already have branded apartments and all that right now available in India. So the rest of the market will also organize themselves, and we hopefully will be able to lead that at BuildNext as well.
So Tarun and Deepak, Gopi had pointed out one very important thing, that when it comes to developed market, right, the players are quite in the collaboration front, but it's important to note when it comes to tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, the traditional practice, construction and the emerging technology which is there in sustainable, where do you see how the awareness can be created and how the collaboration can happen?
Yeah, Kritika. So what we understand by traditional construction processes and emerging technologies, to me, it's an evolution. Traditional, if I look at an RCC framework, is giving way to prefabrication, say. So this collaboration and interlinking between old knowledge and new knowledge has to be on a continuum. There's no clear break. And training, skills, addition, upgradation is one of the things which needs to be done. The point in all this is that whether it's traditional or conventional, the three key points in any construction setup are cost, quality, and time. And any of these practices should address that. And same thing for the startups. You're providing us disruptive solutions. Are the disruptive solutions looking at these three key factors, and are they sustainable in the larger sense of climate, greenhouse emissions, loss of biodiversity, or pollution? If they are, they will find their space in the market.
Yeah, just to add, when we talk about traditional constructions, there is set of practices 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when somebody try to disrupt, disruption is not well taken in a construction industry. It's not a software company. They don't like disruption. I have a way to do this for the last 100 years. I'll keep doing it. But so any new thing, any new green cements, no one touches green cement, right? They use the traditional cement. Like in our case, we sell an STP, sewage treatment plant, which doesn't need any power. No power, no chemical, no operator. So they will not touch it. I mean, what is this? So something new. I'll rather go to my existing system. That is a 100-year-old technology. 100 years. If you look at the normal sewage treatment system, it's just a tank and you blow air through it. And blow air, keep on blowing air for 20 hours a day. So you can't blow air using solar motors. So you need a really high grid power to run this. And we are saying, no, you don't need this, right? So that needs lots of communication, because I'm moving from the traditional set values to do something else. And that's where the communication, awareness, repeating again, stories, like when we start off, as a startup is so difficult. How can I believe you, right? So for example, one of the first advertisement or what a PR we got was in Kritika. She wrote about us, I think 5 years back. 5 years back, she wrote about us. So you give the trust. So how do I trust you? Then the slowly trust build up. Then more and more people, Economic Times wrote, then BBC came down and then wrote about us. Then the more trust increased. So increasing the trust coefficient is very important. When you try to disrupt, If you're making a small incremental change, they'll accept you. But you are trying to shake the system is very difficult. Yeah.
Anand, Mr. Deepak had pointed out very good point by talking about cost and quality, right? So when we talk about emotional investment, especially in the consumer perspective, housing is a very important aspect in everyone's, day. You would say how they put it, roti kapda makan is important. So how would a sustainable expert create or help consumers to understand in choosing, I would say, sustainable products, materials, so that they can improve their quality of living? Because as we have noticed, when it comes to cost, it comes down to that, right? Developers also don't get into it because it becomes expensive. Because if they tell home buyers, pay 50,000 more for a sustainable house, they might not be bothered about it. So how do we create awareness among especially consumers?
Yeah. I think this is a very good question. See, I think in Indian housing market, especially residential sector, I think cost is the first and foremost criterion, right? So I think any sustainable technology or any sustainable building material or practice has to be cost competitive. The good news is many of them are. Okay, if you take some of the forms of green concrete or green bricks, paneling, many of them are in fact better cost-wise, better off than their traditional counterparts, right? They are also in the process of getting certified, etc. So this is the good news. I think then comes the thing about awareness, right? Where people are used to seeing certain brands, and as you said, it's an emotional investment. They don't want to take any risks, go for something new. So that is where I feel some of these, certifications and some kind of a stamp of genuineness, which is coming from an external third-party body, right? Be it a Gruha or be it, any of the other green certifications. I think this really will help to build that customer confidence. One more very important thing I want to talk about when it comes to green building materials and so on is the fact that, we need to have a complete ecosystem around it. So let us take the example of, let's say, some tiles, right, which are made, let's say, of some recycled material and, capturing carbon or maybe capturing some, plastics within that, right? Now, it's very important that everything around it, like, for example, the people who are used to laying the tiles in a certain way, the traditional, the workers or the technicians who are used to laying it, they need to be trained on how to use this material, how to lay it such that there are no breakages or gaps and so on. And this applies to any building material, that the entire ecosystem around it, starting from the people who work with that material to the people who order that, like the contractor, the people who stock it, all of them have to be educated. And of course, last but definitely not the least, the consumer themselves has to be made aware that this is an alternative which is both low cost, but at the same time, it is much better for the environment. I think this, this kind of awareness creation will go a long way in promoting such materials.
Yeah, may I just add something to this? A lot of times we talk about sustainability for the sake of sustainability. Now, especially when you're talking to a certain kind of customer, and I'm talking about the rural customer that I was handling, or the semi-urban customer that bulk of affordable housing is trying to get. That segment, exactly. Sustainability for the sake of sustainability won't work. So, like you said, you have to have a value proposition for the person. I remember we were trying to promote solar panels in rural housing. When we tried to tell him that, it will save electricity costs, this, that, and the other, it didn't work, right? But the minute you said, "Bahar bijli hogi nahi hogi, aapke ghar mein hogi," it worked, because what he got then was a value proposition very close to his heart. I think it's a big challenge for developers, for builders, for startups to really understand what problem they are solving and build their value proposition accordingly.
So Tarun, when it comes to communication, right? So what Mr. Anuj has pointed out, that the way they communicated to this tier 2 cities and even rural areas, the communication needs to be different for them to practice these sustainable solutions. So I want to understand from you, because you started Ecostp, STP. I'm sure earlier you must have faced challenges. So do you agree when it comes to sustainable solution, the communication needs to be different for the consumer to take a benefit out of it rather than make it look like a very expensive affair?
Yeah, certainly, because let's take we have two sets of segments. One is a normal a builder or a university or college, or a hospital or a factory. For them, this is STP or sewage is not top of the mind. I don't want to deal with this, right? So I don't even want to think about it because it's not iPhone, right? It's not in my radar. So, and it's very subconscious thing. So communication, we have to break through that. Like one of the things we're trying to do is, we did a study by IIT Madras and said 7% of the building's power is STP. So wow, 7%. Oh, let me look at it. Otherwise, they won't, unless that 7%, unless they use IIT Madras name, they won't look at it because I don't want to see this. Right? Mentally, I'm switched off. Right? That's a huge thing. Second, when you go to rural areas, I want a place to live. I don't care about anything else. I don't care where my toilet, I don't where a septic tank. So I will never ever invest in STP. Forget about any STP. I'll put a simple tank, soak pit, which goes down. The whatever fecal matter goes down. It will pollute the bowel, but I will not bother about this. So you need a different set of communication for that segment, because you can't say you're wrong, right? You have to put a thing. It needs a lot of education. Why we have to put a and there's a solution to this. That's how it, yeah. But mindset issue is a very subconscious what we're trying to crack, and that's a huge challenge for us. And it's a continuous process.
Yeah, Gopi, I was coming to you only because when it comes to your startup, BuildNext, you are in touch with consumers, right? So you would know more when it comes to sustainable practices. Are consumers open about it, or do they feel it's a expensive affair, let's not bother about it?
See, this is almost in continuation with what I was talking about. See, not everyone is looking for cost as a differentiator, right? So, like there are people who are looking for the cheapest product, and when to the people who are looking for the cheapest product, if you essentially say them, you know what, pay like 10,000 rupees for the environment, they're not going to pay. But there are people who are looking for other, benefits as well, right? There are people who are looking for, like, there is a significant market for whom a home is a status symbol, right? And these guys are actually looking for a talking point, and instead of getting, I don't know, some, Italian marble, these guys could, very well go ahead and invest in a sustainable practice, right? And unless and until we basically understand this particular, segmentation, and so at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a very simple technology transfer protocol, right? I mean, there are so many research papers across segments. There have been technology transfer protocols which have been done very, extensively. And here the problem right now is that we have not been able to adapt any of these technology transfer protocols very well because of the lack of data about, the kind of the lack of data which kind of prevents us from following a lot of these protocols to their, to the nicest extent. So the moment we basically understand this kind of data, the moment we understand, okay, you know what, this particular product will absolutely suit, let us say, middle class in these markets, belonging to these demographics, etc., then this becomes very large. And I mean, coming to think of it, the sheer market size when we're talking about housing, when we're clubbing them together, is probably, it's like a single digit share of the country's GDP, right? I mean, we can't just, put that entire thing in a single bucket and say, you know what, does this work for this bucket or not, right? Every segment of it, essentially, different things will work, right? There is probably like $1 billion worth of, houses being constructed in the next, 10 years for a niche technology. Right? We just need to understand, we just need to basically, segment, we just need to create that distribution channel and go to it. And that is precisely where, startups actually can get like, very quick foothold here, right? I mean, there are these niches to be explored, there are these niches to be figured out, and there are these markets to be gone and captured, and we will see these things going forward, and I'm sure we'll see this.
So I just wanted to add to the discussion that in all this, in a market systems, there is a regulatory framework which also supports certain decisions and practices. Just taking an example of, say, paints and exterior or interior applications, a regulation of banning certain kinds of paints because they released VOCs changed the market to the kinds of products which are available. Similarly, price to value should also be on total life cycle costing than just what you buy a product for. So what basically I want to say is a positive, incentivized policy framework can also help homeowners make conscious decisions on purchasing what is more responsible than anything which is available off the shelf. And similarly, for the supply side, the developers, the real estate, construction companies also need to be responsible to understand that there is a policy framework, there are carrot and stick or punitive and incentive issues if they do something wrong.
You rightly said, Ananth, as we pointed out when it comes to consumer, what Gopi had pointed out, very interesting fact is status symbol. So when it comes to commercial buildings, right, lately we have seen all the top Fortune 50 companies are having a demand of sustainable buildings. So more incentives are provided by the government from the tax benefit point of view to other incentives which can help developers and even the companies to gain advantage of having a sustainable building from having certification of grade A and grade B building certification. So it's become like a good incentive for the commercial corporate players to get into it. But when we see residential sector, right, what could be the incentives that can be offered to the construction players so that the cost of the materials is quite benefit for the consumer, and even the consumer can also demand for sustainable housing, especially when we talk about affordable homes for individual home buyers. Because as we are seeing, as I told you, the status symbol has become for commercial, but when it comes to residential, we are not seeing a lot of incentives being provided. So what do you suggest could, gain more momentum in the residential sector?
Yeah. I think government plays a very important role, as Deepak mentioned, and we should remember that government holds both the carrot and the stick in their hand, right? So talking about the stick part of it, like, all of us know the success story of, for example, solar water heaters, which is a very green way of heating the water for taking bath. And, in many states, this has been a very good success because what the government has mandated is for a building of certain size, you have to use solar water heaters, otherwise you will not get your occupancy certificate, right? So that is a stick approach where you're saying you do this, otherwise we will not get the necessary, the certification. And similarly for rainwater harvesting as well. So some of these green practices have been introduced by enforcement or by saying that, without this you will not be able to occupy your house. Coming to the carrot part of it, which is really incentives, positive incentives, I think for residential buildings, you're right. It's a very different market from the commercial one. So it is not about giving tax breaks or, accelerated depreciation and all that. This will not work in the residential sector. I think, in my opinion, what would work, firstly, a better cost of financing. So and I think these schemes are already rolled out, if I'm not mistaken, in a few sectors or in a few banks. So overall, if it is a green building in a residential area, and that has to be defined better. I think today the biggest problem is, how do you define a residential green building, right? Obviously, commercial buildings do go in for various kinds of certifications, but we know that those certifications add a lot of cost to the building, and this will not be affordable in the housing sector. So there has to be a simple way of certifying a residential building as a green building, in which case various breaks can be given, starting with a lower rate of financing, as well as a lower maybe tax on the house, okay? So these are some of the things which will, create a positive environment for people to adopt. I don't think it can be done on a material by material basis. That would be pretty complicated. But on an overall green building basis, if that can be easily defined, well defined and easily certified, I think there the incentives can really make a big difference.
If I can sound a bit of be a bit of a devil's advocate, yes, incentives could be given, should be given till the scale up happens, incentives can happen and all that kind of thing. The only red flag that I'd like to raise, any business model which depends on government incentives to make sense is asking for trouble at some stage or the other. So that's the only red flag I'd like to raise. To kickstart things, yes, maybe incentives can be given. But I think both the incentives and the business model person developing the business model or the promoter should be very clear that this has an exit. These are available for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. And after that, there's a sunset clause which is built in. So you don't build a business around that. Build it independent of that. The incentive is only to help you reach scale. After that, it should be a standalone.
Yeah, just to add on what you said, in our business, when we approach clients, they always say, "Oh, it's STP, no power, no chemicals. How much subsidy I get?" I said, "No subsidy, right?" But the mindset is, I should get a subsidy because I got subsidy for solar and other things. So, no subsidy, then why should I even consider? Because in the back of the mind, I'm not planning to put an STP. I'm letting out the drain that goes to the lake or sea or somewhere else, right? So I don't intend to do it. So if they wanted to shift to, as a good citizen, put an STP, which is a complete net zero STP, I need to incentivize. So it's good to have these particular incentives like we did in solar for not only STP or any other green initiative, so that business gets some fillip. Right now, I'm completely focusing on customer stories. Like recently, we went to Tata Steel. Tata Steel gave a great feedback with the treated water holding the tank. Tata Steel general manager, and, "Sir, look at this. Tata Steel is going to buy this thing. No subsidy, nothing. You have to put money." But so that's how we are selling. But it can completely change if you get a subsidy or some for the green initiatives.
Gopi, correct me if I'm wrong. So recently, everyone is talking about 3D printing homes, right? Good sustainable solution for affordable homes and individual home buyers. But as Mr. Anuj pointed out about the red flag, why I'm bringing this question is 3D printing homes are expensive, right? So the question comes down to there should be incentives for the construction companies so that this solution can be majority provided to affordable homes, individual home buyers. So do you think such offers should be there in the place?
I'll divide that question into two. I think Aditya is somewhere there, so he'll be talking about 3D printing in a while. But see, fundamentally, the costs of a technology like 3D printing is going to come down, in comparison with other things. So to evaluate, 3D printing as an expensive option or in terms of cost option or whatever, at this point of time is probably not the right thing to do, right? It will see its time, and that time will be very soon, right? And companies like Vasta are probably preparing themselves so that, they are in the forefront of something like that. But, even thinking a little bit backward from a government, body's point of view, see, if the government has to subsidize something like electric vehicles, right? That is a very organized space. The government has an accurate understanding of, I put this much money into subsidies in this particular segment. This is the kind of benefit I'm going to get, right? In something like housing, the efficiency, the ROI calculations are just impossible because the government does not understand, like, for example, the impact that the government says, you use, fly ash based bricks tomorrow, right? I will give you 10 rupees subsidy on it. The government is finding it difficult to, kind of monitor the expenses in government constructions. How does the government actually look at, all housing in the country? It's just impossible, right? And that is going to be like a major point when we are kind of trying to understand what are the kind of subsidies that we should probably even expect the government to do in something like this. If I was to basically think about what are the right kind of let's say interventions that government should actually have, certifications are a great way to go. Training is an absolutely great way to go, because earlier, like Ananth was saying, one of the biggest impediments in sustainable products actually getting used is the trust and is the inability of the local vendor pool to actually use some of these newer materials. So as long as the government is basically incentivizing, training, incentivizing, skill sets, which the government is already doing to some level, but maybe a little bit more focused intervention is probably the biggest game changer which we can see in the space.
I agree with you. Deepak, you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I'm going to go a bit off tangent. See, while we are constructing buildings, it is also a responsibility to look at end of life of these buildings. So I'm looking at true disruptions coming from the fact that as buildings get demolished, what happens to the waste? It's a very acute problem in India because construction demolition waste is being dumped all over the place. It goes into water channels, illegal landfills, and this is because the companies are trying to cut transportation costs or they don't take responsibility of what happens with it. So developing a startup ecosystem around the management, efficient management of construction and demolition waste as we construct new buildings, to know what material is going in, what material is going to come out, and from that material, what can be reused, reprocessed, repurposed, or recycled is also very important to remember at the back of our minds.
I'd like to just, because, I mean, it's a little bit more tangential like that. But see, this is a great point, even in understanding what sustainability actually means. Like, for example, now let's say there is a building technology which basically has 50%, embodied energy compared to, let us say, something else, conventional technology. But if this technology can result only in, let us say, 40% life cycle as the other one, the net impact of this building is, it's basically, increasing energy consumption by 20%, right? So that, this kind of nuances are again further important. So just, adding to that.
So on that note, lastly, I want to ask from Mr. Anuj, the question has come up from the founders that in the realm of housing and climate change innovation, beyond impact investing, what financial avenues such as debt capital, traditional VC funding, or philanthropic funding should be prioritized to facilitate the growth and scalability of innovative business solutions?
I'll try and keep it very brief because this is quite a long drawn out thing. Is there enough money going? The short answer is no. There will never be enough money going, but then we are used to shortages. So this is just one more shortage that you should have. Is the government doing the right things? I think the short answer is yes. One is proud of the fact that the government, right from the top, is making very categorical commitments when it comes to sustainability and green, etc. You look at RBI, they are talking about risk-based, climate risk-based portfolio analysis or risk analysis. SEBI is talking about a whole lot of things. So each of the regulators is talking about a whole lot of interesting things which will all enhance or make the market for green finance far, far deeper. Is the solution, is it going to change things tomorrow? The answer is no. Are we going to get truckloads of money sitting outside tomorrow for startups to dip into? The answer is most certainly not. So if a startup has to access any of this kind of money, I'm afraid the only solution is going back, I think, to what Deepak said, have the right solution in the first place. Getting money is not just an idea, it's just not possible if you have a great idea. Your great idea must be solving a real problem, whether it is cost, whether it is quality, etc., etc. So that's really going back to the basics. And it's really people like Twilliger, like the mission here, like some of the other accelerators, incubators, etc., to put things together for the startup. I don't think a startup can go and access blended finance, or a startup can go and access green finance sitting in one place. The size that they look for is so small that the players who are really keen on this kind of financing will just not look at them. So it's really upon people in between, like the Twilliger Center, like the mission here, like other accelerators, who need to put it together and give it to them. And I think for the right ideas, for the right product, there is no dearth of money. Overall, yes, there is shortage, but you can attract money if you have the right answer.
Just for our audience to understand, could you explain in brief what is blended finance?
So a lot of people are putting together, let's say, money from a philanthropist or a philanthropy of any kind, money from banks or any other financial institution. So the bank will obviously charge an interest rate. The institution may give it as an outright grant, may give it at a low interest rate, may give it only as a no interest loan or whatever. And you put all this together and you offer a product to the customer or to the startup, which is far, far more effective in terms of cost than just going to either a commercial or whatever. And you use it basically to get impact scores or impact credits for the financial concern.
Lastly, I want all the speakers can contribute to this question. We'll start with Deepak. When it comes to fundraising, right? Sustainable solutions, people begin with just a product demo first and then try to go for fundraising. Do you think it should be tested in the market for long run before going ahead with just a demo being shown and then going for the fundraising?
Yeah, I'd love for the startup founders to answer that. But to my experience and understanding, I think pilot testing in the market goes first. You have an idea, it becomes an innovation when it goes to the market. Other than that, it stays as an idea. The proof of concept, pilot testing, then scaling up would be the natural progression for me.
Yeah, I agree, because in our case, we went through the training program by Shelter Tech Incubation, so they know us. They know how. So you're doing due diligence through this training session. And then we have few customers paying for it. And of course, they have the standard metrics. Is the market big enough? Is that those things? But the market can be big enough, of course, in our case. But will they pay for it? So that is a big question. So if the market is big enough, they don't pay, then you're not the right fit. But at least we showed some customers, okay, they're paying for it. Ah, yeah, then great. That's how I think the conversation happens.
Anuj and Gopi, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, so just, because this is, in Kerala and Kerala Startup Mission is active here, there is some, I think around 15 lakhs or something of product development grant that the Kerala Startup Mission is giving, which I believe in most cases should be enough to develop at least an initial POC, which should be, good enough to, go talk to at least an angel investor in like a convincing format here. So there is a path to kind of, reaching, I don't know, like some level of a situation where you can actually pitch and raise initial funds for the project, which is available for, everyone who's sitting here, right? I guess that's the...
I wouldn't like to add anything. I think we've already run out of time. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. If we could take one or two questions.
Hi, myself Mahesh. So we've been working with a co-housing project. So I just want to know your thoughts on whether co-housing will work into it. So when we started with the feasibility of co-housing project in Kerala, we were in a situation seeing entire Kerala has been without a proper design policy. It's a urban sprawl. When compared to other states in India, entire Kerala is becoming an urban sprawl, and most of the houses are empty or with very old people. So we were trying to create an urban village with all these modern fancy words of like sustainability, conscious consumerism, purpose economy and all. So we were actually integrating a community kitchen also into this process. So we acquired land. So we completed the design with the architecture team. Then we thought about RCC is a more sustainable material if we are using responsibility. And we found out about the Mivian framework. I hope you will be knowing about it, like a monolithic kind of design. So we pour concrete into the walls and we can cost effectively create this kind of things. Then we approached a lot of constructors and builders. And they all were giving very, very random prices for the entire construction. So we just got stuck at that moment. Then when we approached the banks also, like they were also not happy without like because we are like new people into this and we are not a constructor. We don't have any assets also. So we just got stuck into this situation. So I just want to know your thoughts on the possibility of co-housing in Kerala in a situation like this. Basically, right now we are segregating people. Right now we are creating so many old age homes and we are creating so many kindergartens and crushes for children. It's a high time to have like modern urban villages to give it like a more sustainable lifestyle for modern people. So I just want to know your thoughts on this and how as a startup we'll be able to get our first project into society. It's like a 5 hours project with like about 300 units. It's like a very small units with most of the spaces utilized for public amenities. And we almost got like 20% of people, like about 54 people interested in our project. But without a price, we can't move on. So we just got stuck into it.
Yeah, I mean, as a incubator and investor, I'll try to answer that question. See, some of these ideas, are very exciting, but also very new. Okay, so generally people will be risk averse, especially when you go to bankers and when you go to people who are giving out loans and all that, they are very risk averse. So in order to pitch an idea like this and in order to kind of get people excited and actually willing to put money and effort behind it, I think it's very important firstly if you can do a small pilot, okay, without having too much of changes or investment, but just showing how the concept works. Secondly, if you are able to show some good examples, let's say from Western countries, because I'm sure that, I know that these kind of concepts are coming up, especially, in Europe and so on. So this co-housing concept, how it is working somewhere else. If you can sell, you have to sell the vision basically, right? I think, that would be the critical thing, because this is an idea where, every idea the time has to come. You're ahead of the curve in bringing something like this. So the key is how do you sell the vision? And you have to think of different ways of doing that, including, as I mentioned, some kind of a pilot physical where people can see how it is working and bring very clear and concrete examples from other places. These are the two suggestions which I have. Deepak, you want to add?
I'll just wind up. We can discuss this offline. But overall, I think you had some 7-8 ideas in that small conversation we had. One was on monolithic construction, which is a construction process. There are many variations there. Second was the social aspect of how you are providing assisted living conditions. Third is about co-living. Fourth was urban village, etc., etc. So you'll have to break each of these and see which is the first one to approach and then go on to the next higher one. Also learn from secondary research and archival knowledge as to what has happened elsewhere, like Ananth said, and then learn from it. So we can take it offline, surely.